Well, God bless you. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're watching from. I am Apostle Nona Ray,
And I'm Apostle Glenda Ray,
and
and
we
we
are
are
God's
God's
girls,
girls,
keeping
keeping
it
it
real.
real. We're
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the
yes,
broadcast. We're glad to be here with you today.
we're here live with another broadcast. We ask that you would let somebody know that those girls are on the air again. Share, tag someone, call someone, let individuals know that we are on the air because this topic that we're talking about today,
It's a good one.
wow,
We're
you
gonna
don't want to miss it.
You don't want to miss it. And listen, I'm sure that this topic we're discussing is going to be very beneficial for you all going forward to help you just to open your eyes and identify some things. We started
Yes.
last week
Hmm.
talking about abuse,
Yes.
and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this subject today. Hopefully, be able to give you some tips and some pointers on some things that you can look for
Yeah.
to determine whether there may be abuse in someone that you know.
Yeah.
And so, Apostle, this is really, we could spend weeks
A long
on
time.
this. Yeah,
Yes.
we really could.
Yeah, because as we began to dive into it, we realized that there are so many different forms of abuse, and the thread runs from one form to another form,
It
and they're
does.
intertwined. And as we begin to dive into this, we realized that this could not just be a one-time deal. And we also discovered and are finding out, Apostle, that there are many people who are in abusive situations and don't even realize it and count it as abuse.
Absolutely. And some people just think that they're just going through. But the bottom line is that you have gotten yourself into a situation, a relationship, friendship, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be spousal. It can be friends. Listen, we found out that there is such a thing as political abuse.
Absolutely.
So, of course,
Yeah.
we know that, well, we are being abused politically, but
Yes.
we won't hit that right now. We'll save that for another
Right,
day.
because that gets really, really
It
deep.
does. It
And it
does.
exposes and uncovers a lot of things, and that's what I'm finding, that as we're dealing with this topic of abuse, that it's unearthing some things, and it's pulling the covers off of some things that have been hidden and pressed down and manipulated,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that whole thing, and that's the whole thing about manipulation. It's like it's so covert,
Yes.
and before you know it, you've hit inroads of manipulation, and you
Yeah.
find yourself so entrenched, and you ask yourself, how did I even get
How
here?
did I get here?
How did this
Yeah.
even happen? How did this get so far in depth? But
Yeah.
that's the nature of that manipulative spirit.
It is. And as we discussed last week, both of us have been involved in abusive relationships.
Yes.
And it's a real trap.
Sure.
It is, it's
Mm.
almost like being trapped in one of these mazes where you just can't seem to find your way out.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons why people stay in abusive relationships. But as you said, I think the main reason is because it's hard to identify it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No one wants to believe that they're in an abusive relationship.
Right.
No one wants to believe that they're being abused. So we're going to jump into some things today.
Yeah.
Where are we starting? Are we starting
Well,
with?
we last week we dealt with the different types of abuse, and we were only able to hit three of them before we ran out of time.
Yes.
And since that time, we found about four or five more that
Yeah,
we
we
are
have.
looking to try to hit. But last week, and for the sake of time, we'd like to be able to move forward. But just letting you know, we dealt with physical abuse, all of the aspects that run along with that,
Mm-hmm.
the violence and the attacks and all of that. We hit a little bit about sexual abuse,
Yes.
and that thing just goes so entrenched and so widespread. And we dealt a little bit with verbal and emotional abuse.
Yes.
So I think if we pick up from there and just kind of um, roll along the track, one of the things that we were discovering in verbal and emotional abuse is that with verbal abuse also comes nonverbal abuse.
Yes.
And that can be just as damaging as the verbal abuse, in the sense of it makes individuals feel like, well, what's wrong with me, or um, why can't I seem to get it right? The
Yeah.
silent treatment, and we
Yeah.
find that a lot with husband and wives,
Absolutely.
and that manipulation that goes along with that.
and husbands and wives not realizing that what they've just done is entered into a form of abuse
Yes.
non-communicatively.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are this kind of abuse is very covert. It's not kind of in your face,
Yeah.
but it does a tremendous amount of damage.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where you're belittled all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You are punished. It's very punitive. You're punished where your spouse or your friend or whatever the situation may be uh, will not talk to you,
Right.
won't speak to you. They kind of cut you off. Um, they uh, they just do all kinds of things, and the scars, the emotional scars
Yes.
that
Yes.
happen as a result of verbal and emotional abuse
Mm-hmm.
run very, very deep.
Yeah. You
They
know,
open you up to a lot of rejection,
right. Right.
things of that nature. And we know that people in the body of Christ deal with a lot of rejection, a lot of the orphan spirit,
Mm.
feeling as if they're being castrated. We have to start asking ourselves why.
Yeah.
What's causing that? And
Mm-hmm.
I believe it is abusive relationships that
Absolutely.
we've gotten ourselves involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have found myself even being a victim, and that's really what it is. It's a victimization,
Yeah.
becoming a victim of nonverbal abuse.
Yes.
And it just really causes you to go inward to feel like it can cause you to shell up
Sure.
and not communicate with individuals and not share your heart because you feel like you're going to be rejected.
Mm-hmm.
It had the scars that it leaves are just really devastating unless you can get to the point of where you move into freedom and realizing that, hey, there's nothing wrong with me, it's something wrong with you.
Absolutely. And as leaders in the church, we see all forms of abuse. As a matter of fact, we tend to take all forms of abuse.
Yeah.
People don't
Mm.
think about how they tend to abuse their shepherds
Yeah.
many times. We're there, we're praying, we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to help you, and we're trying to bless you, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you just drop off the scene. You stop
Wow.
talking to us, stop
Yeah.
taking calls. You won't answer, you won't respond back. I mean, you guys have to understand that
Yeah.
is a form of emotional abuse.
Absolutely. And then what about this end of it? Putting your name out there and making your name mud and talking about how you did this, that, and the other because of their own offense.
Yes.
And so it makes it look like that you're an abusive leader when really the leader is the one that's coming under abuse. Now, I know
Absolutely.
it's double sided and I
Yeah.
know it works both ways, but
Mhm.
many times we'll think in terms of the sheep being abused, but we don't even look at leadership being abused.
Absolutely, the shepherds being abused. And so abuse is a two-edged sword. It swings both
Mm-hmm.
ways. And we realize, we will talk about spiritual abuse here in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
We realize that spiritual abuse is very problematic in the church. And we also realize that there are many, many leaders that engage in spiritual abuse because they're trying to control.
Yeah.
They're trying to manipulate. They're
Yeah.
trying to overlord, if you will. And there are things that as leaders we can't find ourselves engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, that is a two-sided coin.
Yeah.
And we have to look at both sides of this. Leaders can be very, very abused by
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
And not only can they be abused, they can be abused by multiple people at the same time.
Right. Right.
And that just adds on to it. And so that emotional verbal abuse, how people talk to you,
Yeah.
things of that nature.
Yeah.
It is This is something that we have to begin to talk about. We have to
Yeah.
begin to examine.
Yeah. I don't have statistics, Apostle, but I can believe that many of the leaders that quit, that leave the ministry, that just throw in the towel and say, I've had enough,
Mhm.
a lot of it comes from this abuse. It's like you said, you lay down your lives, your family goes lacking, you make sure that everything is happening in terms of the church.
Mhm.
And many times leaders put the ministry before their families and before anything else. When there's things that are lacking, it's usually the leader that's
Yeah.
lacking the most. And so it can really cause you to feel like, hey, what am I doing here?
Right.
And the leaders are leaving by the droves,
Sure.
just throwing in the towel to say that, hey, I'm done.
Hmm. And I mean, and we understand, in order for you to step into those places of leadership, it is imperative that you have your that soul that's been dipped in iron,
Mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm.
and that is simply because you're going to encounter some levels of abuse.
Right.
It's nothing you can avoid, it's nothing you can do about
Mm-hmm.
it, because we're dealing with humanity,
Yeah.
which even saved humanity
Yeah.
is, well, something else. Praise
Yeah.
the Lord.
It comes
So
with the
it
territory.
comes with the
Yeah.
territory. And so you have to be willing to really count the cost. Leaders have to understand, when you go into this thing, and I think sometimes they don't, apostle, they
Right.
don't count the
Yeah.
cost
Yeah.
of what it means, because
Mm-hmm.
it does mean to be abused sometimes. Even
Mm-hmm.
the apostles talked about how we as apostles are the offscouring of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know how we tend to get treated badly, and again, it's, I don't think people do it purposefully.
Right. Right.
As far as I go,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to ever let anybody purposefully abuse me. Okay,
Absolutely.
that's a wrap. Just want y'all to know it. Okay, miss me with that one, because we don't do intentional abuse.
Yeah.
But many times people unintentionally
Yeah.
abuse.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to bring some light to that,
Mm-hmm.
and help the people of God understand that
Yeah.
your leaders are precious and you should
Yeah.
treat them accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. And so
Yes.
our what's our next one? Our
That
next
the
is
mental
mental.
and
Hmm.
psychological abuse, which can go, it runs on the thread of that verbal and nonverbal abuse.
Yes, it does.
Because when there's nonverbal abuse taking place, people can say a whole lot of things without saying anything.
Yeah.
And so it's like the words that they are not saying, but then it comes across in the attitudes, it comes across in the body language,
Hmm.
it comes across in so many different forms, but you haven't said a word, but you've said everything.
Yeah. And the psychological and mental abuse also shows up in ways that make you almost think you're crazy,
Mm-hmm.
make you think that there's something wrong with you. And as I was doing some research on this, I was reading about one woman who said that her husband actually engaged in mental or psychological abuse against her. And
Mm-hmm.
what he would actually do is do things to make her think that she was losing her mind.
Wow.
He would move her keys,
Mm.
or that she would set something down knowing that it was there and go
Mm-hmm.
back for it and it's somewhere else. He's
Yeah.
moved it,
Yeah.
and then deny
Mm-hmm.
that he's moved it.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. I mean, you would be surprised. Making people stay in dim light.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mental or
Yes. Yes.
psychological type of
Yes.
abuse.
Yeah.
You can't turn lights
Mm.
on, or you've got to stay in dark rooms and things like that. I mean, this thing really gets very,
Wow.
very deep.
Yeah.
And they tend to do the psychological abuse over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
It has to wear on you.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has to wear on you. It's much like the kind of abuse that you would find with children, where they're locked in rooms and things
Absolutely.
of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and listen to me, we have adults that encounter that,
Mm-hmm.
do spouses.
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
even children with elderly parents.
Mm-hmm.
Elder abuse is another form of
Wow.
abuse that
Yeah.
we have to really
Yeah.
think about and look
Mm-hmm.
at, because it's difficult taking care of an elderly person.
Yeah.
And the tendency to abuse them,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that really springs up.
Yeah, because actually what happens is life cycles, it begins to reverse.
Yep.
And so you have this adult individual, but yet they're processing through life as though they were a child,
Yeah.
because the cycles are reversing. And so how many times do we see where in the news where there's been abuse of elderly people in the nursing homes and in the hospitals,
Yes.
the many lawsuits that come across as a result of neglect
Sure.
and abuse and these things. And you mentioned about even children growing up in places where, I've heard testimonies of individuals share how they were locked in the closet, they were locked in the basement as a form of punishment.
Yes.
But that is abuse. I'll take it back to us being locked down from COVID.
I know.
That was
It was
abusive.
abusive. It
And we're
absolutely
seeing the
was.
fruit and the manifestation or the results of many people being locked down
Yeah.
because of COVID.
Yeah. And afraid to come out. afraid to get back into society.
Yes.
Listen, afraid to take off the mask, the fear. That is abuse.
Yes, it is.
And that's abuse from our government
Mm-hmm.
and from the powers that
Mm-hmm.
be to
Yeah.
wear on us, just wear on us, as if we have never experienced any kind of pandemic before.
Before.
I
Right.
mean, we act like this is the first time in history this has ever happened.
Yeah.
And we have been designed by God to build up the immunities
Mm-hmm.
necessary
Mm-hmm.
uh, to keep these diseases from wiping us out.
Yeah.
Yes, we understand that people died,
Yeah.
but that fear of death, that fear of
Mm-hmm.
getting
Mm-hmm.
COVID, that
Yeah.
fear, that was completely abusive.
And it causes you to not live life the way you were designed to
It
live. And
does.
many times we can miss out on what God designed and what He had for
Yes.
our lives because we are locked away in this shell of fear
Yes.
and fearing to come out, fearing to be around people. You know, I've met people coming and going in the stores,
Mhm.
and I'm unmasked, but they're masked, and they move way over to the other side of the store, you know, because they don't want to come in contact, as though people can just germinate on you like that. You know, it's like, you know,
Yes,
it's
indeed.
really sad. You know, we laugh, but it's really a sad situation
Yeah.
because people are, they are locked up
Yeah.
and can't really even live life, can't even be free. uh, it's really sad, and I don't know that people even see it as abuse, but
Yeah.
it is emotional
It
abuse.
is. Sure it is. It's one of the highest forms of emotional abuse,
Yes.
psychological abuse, psychological conditioning,
Yeah.
you know, things of that nature. I mean, that happens all the time.
Even
And
with the kids with school.
absolutely, it
Mm-hmm.
does. And so, yeah, I mean, we are in times that are abusive.
Yeah.
And you understand that we as Christians are being abused daily
Mm-hmm.
with agendas and ideologies just being pushed upon us that's so directly opposed to what we believe.
Right.
No other religion suffers abuse
Encounters.
like this.
Right. You're
I
right.
promise you,
Mm-hmm.
no other religion suffers the abuses that Christianity does.
Yeah.
And unless we again begin to recognize it as abuse,
Mm-hmm.
identify it, recognize it, and admit to it, and then refuse to submit to it.
Refuse to be victimized by it,
Yes. Yeah.
because that's what it does. It brings you into a place of where you're victimized, and victims are individuals who can't defend themselves,
Sure.
who can't come up, who can't arise, who can't push forth on their own
There.
freedoms.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, and we listen. We're just again trying to just recap on some of the different abuses. But in a minute, we're going to switch over here and we're going to go into some signs of abuse
Yeah.
because, particularly with certain people groups, because
Mm-hmm.
this thing
Wow.
is very prevalent. Our children are literally being abused in school right now,
Mm-hmm.
and we
Mm-hmm.
don't realize it. Everything from bullying,
Yeah.
okay, which is nothing new, but now our children are being sexually abused.
Right.
They are being taught, they are being subjected
Mm-hmm.
to teachings and to doctrines and to information that they should not.
Right.
And our educators have taken it upon themselves to decide that it is okay to abuse our little 5-year-olds, our kindergartners, with sexual
Mm.
orientations and all of those kinds of things. This is abuse.
Yeah.
I
It
know
is.
we can call it what we want to call
Right.
it, but it
Right.
is abuse,
Right.
and we have got to stop just lying down
Yeah.
for these levels of abuse
You know,
because they're happening every day.
yeah, when we look at abuse, you cannot even talk about abuse without it talking about the mental and the psychiatric aspect that it has
Hmm.
upon an individual. Anyone that is a victim of abuse are dealing with some mental pushback, some
Yeah.
real mental issues. And so you talk about our children and what they are being taught in school, the National Sex Education Standard, and what they are saying in terms of even what Disney is putting out now. There's a whole lot of stuff in the news
Yeah.
right now about Disney not being able to, they're no longer going to address boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen, but it's everyone. And so this whole gender identity, this whole sexual orientation, you
Mm-hmm.
have to know that
Yeah.
that is affecting the mental capacity of these kids and
Yes.
crafting their mindset to the point to where now they will begin to experiment
Mm-hmm.
with the things that they are being taught.
Well, and they are required to.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, you must understand you can never have education without homework.
See.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody gonna get
Yeah.
some assignments here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The thing is, what assignments are they getting,
Wow.
and do you know about them?
Wow.
Parents, we have to really wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Another form of abuse, Apostle, we've got just two more, and
Okay.
then we're going to switch and go into some other things.
Mm-hmm.
One is financial or economic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
We find this a lot, particularly with those who are not able to care for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
such as elders,
Yeah.
people that are disabled,
Mm-hmm.
people who depend upon others to help them paying their bills, divvying out their money, things of that nature. That is also a form of
It
abuse.
is.
You have many, many seniors, elders
Mm-hmm.
who are depending upon children who are
Mm-hmm.
abusing their money, taking
Mm-hmm.
their money, using
Mm-hmm.
their money for other things,
Yeah.
using their credit, or I should say, destroying their credit,
Mm-hmm.
using their social security and
Mm-hmm.
things of that
Yeah.
nature, stealing from them, lying
Yeah.
from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that
Wow.
happening,
Mm-hmm.
and understand that that is another form of abuse.
Yes. Yes.
And we have to keep our eyes open and watch for that,
Mm-hmm.
particularly for those of you who may have parents or relatives that are elders. And, let's just face it, they're dealing with children who may be addicts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They may have all levels of addiction. They may even have some form of financial problems or
Mm-hmm.
issues
Mm-hmm.
that will tempt them to
Yeah.
steal from
Yeah.
their parents.
How about this, Apostle? Identity theft.
Absolutely.
And how the elderly have become prey. Not just the elderly, but especially the elderly have become prey to identity theft with this technology, sending things saying that your card has been blocked and you can't use it unless you call and give us. And so they fall prey to give them the
Yes.
information, and then they take and steal all of their stuff.
All of their
Identity
information.
theft is a form of
It
abuse.
really is. It certainly is a form of abuse. And so, again, abuse is using anything for purposes other than that which it was created for.
Mm-hmm.
And abuse can cover a very large gamut.
Yeah.
The last one that we want to talk about here before we move into something else is spiritual abuse. We hit
Yeah.
a little
And
bit
we hit a
about
little
that.
bit of it.
First Peter 5, we talked about this
Mm-hmm.
last week. First
Mm-hmm.
Peter 5, 2 through 4, feed the flock of God among you,
Yeah.
taking the oversight, not by compulsion,
Mm-hmm.
but willingly, nor for base gain, but readily, nor as lording over those allotted to you by God, but becoming examples
Mm-hmm.
to the flock.
Yeah.
And when the chief shepherd shall appear, you shall receive a never fading crown of
Yes.
glory. And so, as leaders, we can't lord over people. Now,
Mm-hmm.
listen, I get it. I know that there are leaders that are out there
Mm-hmm.
and they literally make their people do things.
Yeah.
I got a call today from one of our seniors
Okay.
today, and she is going to be spending resurrection with her. With her family,
Okay.
her daughters, and she's got a
Mm-hmm.
grandson that's in town and all of that. And she called to ask permission.
Wow.
And I said to her, sweetheart, you don't ever have to ask me for
Mm-hmm.
permission
Yeah.
to do things like that.
Absolutely.
I appreciate as having a position that you let me know
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
far as giving permission,
Yeah.
let me tell you something, leaders, you don't have the right. You do not have the right to give people permission to do things.
Mm.
The Bible tells us clearly that we don't lord over God's people.
Right.
Now, we can certainly advise them. We can
Mhm.
certainly counsel them. We
Mhm.
can give them strong admonitions. We can go as far as give them rebukes if that's
Right.
is what is
Right.
necessary. But
Mhm.
to sit up and to punish or to um, abuse a person because they
Mhm.
don't align with what you think they're
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
completely wrong. I don't go
Yeah.
along with that at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. That goes along with the political abuse that we were talking about. And so again, knowing that political abuse, as I looked it up, it's connected to psychiatry.
Yes, it
And
is.
so political abuse refers to the misuse of psychiatric diagnosis, treatment, and detention for the purposes of obstructing the fundamental human rights of certain individuals and groups. So that's what we're seeing today.
Sure.
You'll see a lot of that in totalitarian
Tyrion.
type governments
Yeah.
and dictatorships is basically what you see.
Yeah.
And when we look at what's happening in our nation today, I mean, this is really the track that we're on, where we're making people stay in, where you're mandating that people wear masks, where you're mandating that they take a vaccine. Now they're saying you got to get a booster, and you can't get on the plane unless you're masked up, when everyone else is releasing their mandates, but yet there's others that are reinforcing. And
Mhm.
this is it's a centralized government that does not tolerate parties who oppose them.
Yeah.
And so, even another track, Apostle, I see going back even with the financial abuse. How about this, where the government will set you up with child tax credit, where you can get it every month. And then they'll set you up where you can get a link card, and they'll set you up where you can get cash out. These things were meant to aid and to assist.
Yeah.
And so, but now what they do is you become dependent upon these systems, and then when these systems are pulled out from under you, now you find yourself looking for the government in order to make you whole and to make you what you need to be.
Yeah.
That is a form
Yeah.
of
It
abuse,
is.
and it's by design.
Yeah, and it's a psychological abuse because they
Absolutely.
get you hooked on certain things and then they pull the rug out from
And that's
underneath
the
you.
design.
Yeah, it is. It's control, it's
Mhm.
manipulation, it's a lot of, it's all abuse.
Yeah.
It's all of the classic signs of abuse.
Yes.
Wow. Well, we got some statistics here. I'm these statistics just kind of blew my mind.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to go through some of these. I know our time is getting short and we'll pick this up again,
Mm-hmm.
but just want to go through some of these statistics so that you can see how prevalent abuse really is. And we're not talking just sexual abuse, but we will begin to kind of in on sexual abuse, hone in on that,
Mm-hmm.
and give you some information about it.
Yeah.
1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually assaulted by the age of 16.
Mm-hmm.
1 in 3 girls.
Wow. Wow.
1 in every 3 American women will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime.
Wow.
1 in 7 women will be raped by their own husbands.
Mm.
6 out of
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So you're telling me that because a woman is married to her husband, that she cannot, wait a minute, let me see how I want to phrase this, that he can take advantage of her sexually, and it's called rape, even though he's her husband?
That's correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
Now, listen. The scriptures tell us it has a formula for all of this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The first thing that it says is we don't defile ourselves.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We don't defile ourselves. We don't pull back away from our husband and our wife. But it does not mean that the man or the
Mm-hmm.
woman
Mm-hmm.
has the
the right.
right to demand
Right.
sex up on their partner.
Mm-hmm.
It should be, the thing about submission is that submission is willing.
Right.
If it's not willing,
It's
you're
not
forcing it.
submission.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
submission. And so for a woman to say, no, I don't want to, or I can't, or I don't feel like it, or whatever, even to her husband to say that does not give him the right
Right.
to force himself upon
Mhm.
her,
Mhm.
because the definition of rape is sexual assault without permission or
Mhm.
sexual assault.
Yeah.
It's to
Yeah.
assault a person
Mhm.
sexually.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the law clearly
Mm.
recognizes the fact that a husband can. Now, it's not, it's a recent thing, but now husbands can be charged with rape. It was a
Okay.
time when they could not
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
but now they can be charged with rape.
Mm. Mm.
All right, let's move on. 6 out of 10 rapes or sexual assaults occur in the homes of the victim by family members or
Mhm.
friends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the majority of the abuse that's happening is happening not from strangers,
Mhm.
but from family members that we know, friends that we know.
Yeah.
1,871 rapes per day happen.
Mm. Wow.
Almost 2,000 rapes every day.
Wow.
1.3 women are raped per minute.
Mm.
Wow. How many women have been raped just in the time that we've been on the
Just
broadcast
on the
today?
broadcast. Wow.
3 out of 5 rapes happen before the age of 18.
Mm.
3 out of 10 rapes happen before the age of 11. And between 80 and 90% of sexual assault victims know their attacker.
Mhm. Yeah.
These are just some
Yeah.
statistics
Right. Right.
on sexual abuse.
Right. It's talking about the assaults that take place within the home
Hmm.
among people that you know within the family. When we were growing up, I raised girls as well as boys.
Mm,
And in our household, you didn't go spend the night anywhere.
yeah,
You slept in your own bed at home,
I get it.
where I know what's taking place. But even in that, when you have people sleep over with you,
Yeah,
you just really don't know. Um, we have to be so careful because these statistics have been out here for a while,
yes.
but many people are not even aware of what is taking place in this whole sexual agenda
Hmm.
that's unleashed on our kids.
Yeah, it's true. And parents are very loose with their children today, even when it comes to, as you said, spending the night and
Mm-hmm.
going to stay at the girlfriend's house or
Yeah.
the fella's house.
Yeah.
The thing is that we tend to think that everybody treats their children like we treat
Right.
ours,
Right.
and the reality is that that is not
Yeah.
so.
Mm-hmm.
That is not so. The best prevention is to keep an eye on your children.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what if they get upset? Big
Right.
deal.
Right.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Again, as from the statistics we just read here, most of the attacks or assaults that
Mm-hmm.
happen with people that you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And even in that, taking it beyond, Apostle, this sex trafficking,
Yeah.
girls being abducted off the street and thrown into vans and sold um, into slavery for sex. I mean, it is so prevalent. You can't be too careful,
Yeah.
and covered by the blood of Jesus, because
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, it's
Hmm.
all kind of crazies out here that are doing all kinds of things. And it's sad to say that a lot of it is going unnoticed and unpunished and even condoned.
It is. And we put our head in the sand about
Yeah.
it. We've got some facts of abuse. I know we're running out of time,
Mm-hmm.
but I just want to read a few of these. And
Okay.
then when we come back
Yeah.
next week, let's pick up with talking about some symptoms of abuse,
Okay.
because I think that it's important that our viewers begin to look at their kids, begin to look at their teens,
Mm-hmm.
begin to look at their sisters, their brothers, to look to see if there are signs
Yeah.
that you weren't aware of
Right.
that could very well mean that there's some level of abuse,
Mhm.
particularly with our kids. We
Right.
want to really target that the next time
Mhm.
we're together.
Mhm.
Things that you should be looking and seeing and not just brushing it away
Right.
as if, they're just going through something, or there are some behaviors
Yeah.
that can really be a calling card to let us know
Mhm.
something is going on with your
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that the next time we're together. But we've only got a couple minutes. Let's go through some of these really quick. These are facts about abuse.
Mhm.
Usually abuse takes place behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So you don't know that it's going on.
Mhm.
Abusers always deny their actions.
Yeah.
They will never admit that they're
Mhm.
abusing someone.
Right.
Abusers always blame their victims.
Mhm.
You are the reason why you're being abused. Violence is preceded by verbal abuse.
Yeah.
Abuse damages your self-esteem. These again are just some
Mhm.
facts. It,
Yeah.
it damages your image, your self-esteem, who
Mhm.
you really are. The abuser needs to be right all the time, and the abuser needs to be in control.
Yeah.
I know that can probably be speaking to some people,
Mhm.
because you may be in relationships, whether it's friendships, whether it's spousal relationships, and that individual always got to be right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We cannot have a disagreement
Yeah.
or an argument.
Mhm.
That person has to be right. Let me explain. That is a form of
It
abuse.
is.
It
It
really
truly
is a
is.
form of abuse. Okay, moving on quickly because we're running out of time. The
Okay.
abuser is possessive and may try to isolate their partner
Mm.
from friends and from
Mm.
families.
Mm.
I've had that happen.
Yeah.
The abuser is hypersensitive and may react with rage, get
Mhm.
very angry about things.
Yeah.
A gun in the house, listen, increases the risk of homicide by 500%.
Wow. Wow.
500%. Two-thirds of domestic violence perpetrators have been drinking alcohol or
Some form
some
of
form of a
drugs.
drugs.
Mhm.
Yes, some type of drugs. And one-third of victims have been drinking or using drugs.
Mhm.
And so again, with abuse, we can see this three strand cord. You have the abuse, you have the isolation, and then sometimes you have the drugs or the
Mhm.
alcohol
Mhm.
along with it
Yeah.
to douse that
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
Abuse is very real, and we
Mhm.
are going to spend these next couple of weeks just highlighting some things to help you to understand
Yes.
what you may be dealing with, or what others that may be dealing with.
Yeah. And hopefully, what we're sharing is bringing enlightenment to help you to, first of all, be able to identify and to begin to deal with the aspect that maybe you might be in an abusive relationship, an abusive situation, whether that be
Yeah,
in the workplace, whether that's in the
absolutely.
church, whether that's be in your marital relationship, maybe that's even with your kids. I've seen where kids have abused their parents
Yeah,
to the degree to where the parents are afraid of the children,
sure.
just coming under great scrutiny and great abuse, even violence, to the degree of trying to make the parent do what they want them to do. So
Hmm.
there's so much out there. So hopefully, again, what we're sharing is enlightening you to help you to get out of the web that has been weaved if you find yourself there.
We just simply want to help you. That's all there is to it. We want to provide for you resources to help you to identify your own life.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, Apostle, next week we'll come back and we're going to
Yes.
talk about some symptoms of abuse
Hmm.
that people can look for in their children, in their teens,
Yes.
sisters and brothers. Again, it's not just women,
Yeah.
men sometimes are also abused
Hmm.
in their relationships, in their homes, and hopefully be able to give you some of the things that you need, the tools that
Hmm.
you need to be able to identify if
Yeah.
something's going
Yeah.
on.
Because detection early is very, very key
It is.
so that it can be cut off and nipped in the bud at the outset. So it's very key to be able to see the signs and the symptoms to know that, wait a minute, something shifted here. Something
Yeah.
is not quite right
Yes.
here.
Yes. Absolutely. So we are so pleased that you joined us today. We're going to sign off for this week. We bless you. Have a wonderful resurrection
Yes,
celebration on
yes,
Sunday. We are celebrating Jesus and his resurrection. So
absolutely.
if you are in the area, we would love for you to come by and worship with us at Antioch 1110 Curtis Avenue, right here in Joliet.
Mhm.
We're going to have a powerful time. We're going to do some baptism on Sunday,
Yes,
just some
yes.
great things that we are going to be partaking of. So please come by and worship with us. But in the meantime, I am Apostle Nona Ray,
And I'm Apostle Glenda Ray,
and
and
we
we
are
are
God's
God's
girls,
girls. We're
keeping it
keeping it
real.
real.
God bless you all.
Have a great Resurrection Sunday. We'll see you next time.